Meet Boston Blackie, friend of those who have no friends, enemy of those who make him an enemy. When the original magazine character was popular, there were a total of 11 silent films made about Boston Blackie, two of which starred Lionel Barrymore as the notorious thief. The early Blackie, the Blackie of the magazine, was quite a different character than he eventually became as he was adapted through film, television, and radio. He was a master criminal and gang leader who was extremely professional when it came to cracking a safe, and treated it as an exact science. His cool black eyes and New England place of birth earned him his nickname. He was a university graduate, a daring safecracker made doubly dangerous by his intellect. This man was the aristocracy of the underworld, a criminal with a code. Principle to him was a thing beyond price. And it was this same man who made his way into film during the silent era. But later, in 1941, Boston Blackie would return again to the silver screen, and he was a different man, drastically different. And it's interesting to see that the same character develop over time. Films had changed, the audience changed, and the character of Boston Blackie changed with them. Beginning with Meet Boston Blackie, the first of the new series starring Chester Morris, Blackie is now in a lighter setting with fast-paced action and comedy sequences carrying the plot. He is now a retired thief, and although his criminal past is behind him, his record is so notorious he can't live it down. All 14 films run on the same basic formula. Blackie is usually accused of a crime he didn't commit, and has to play detective to clear his name. These movies have their own set of recurring characters, most notably the Runt, Blackie's loyal sidekick and former partner in crime before the two were formed. The Runt was played by Georgie Stone throughout the series, with the exception of the first film and the final film. In the first movie, Charles Wagenheim portrays the character wonderfully, and in the last movie, Boston Blackie's Chinese venture, Sid Tomac fills in as a similar character named Shorty. Both actors are really funny, and they do a great job. But Georgie Stone is the one who really brought life to the role. He shows his talent each and every moment, even when the Runt doesn't really have much to do in some scenes. He still puts himself into it. Inspector Faraday is another important character throughout the series. In all 14 films, he's played by Richard Lane, who also voiced the same character in the radio show. This kind of movie often has a bungling police detective, whether it's mean or a complete comic. He's always gotten the better of by the main character. And Inspector Faraday could almost fall into this category, but he doesn't. Faraday's character goes beyond the usual stereotype. He's an experienced cop and intelligent for the most part, but he has two handicaps that easily explain why he has a hard time solving the case. The first is Sergeant Matthews, whose first appearance is really a little scene in Meet Boston Blackie, as a nameless policeman on Coney Island. The actor Walter Sands must have been so funny they decided to extend his part in the following film, Confessions of Boston Blackie, which is the first one that I saw, and a personal favorite of mine. So ever since then, Sergeant Matthews became a regular character. Faraday needed a sidekick, and they're a great comedy team. But as far as detecting goes, Faraday probably would have gotten further on his own at times. Because poor Matthews is a klutz, a hapless victim of circumstances, always bungling things up. Absolutely hilarious, though. Eventually, by the middle of the series, other actors took up the role of Matthews. Lyle Littell fortunately only made one. And don't think I dislike the guy. He was really good. But as Matthews, not as Matthews. We saw him in a Dick Tracy movie where he plays the exact same role. The dumb cop sidekick, and he's hilarious. And we all agreed on it. Lyle Littell is perfect in Dick Tracy, but he just feels so out of place in Boston Blackie, to the point of being bland and dry. Frank Sully replaced him quickly as Sergeant Matthews, and dragged the character into a complete comic. A character who exists solely for entertainment. Walter Sands' version of Matthews was at least believable. But when Frank Sully walks in as Matthews, the same character, you gotta wonder how could this stupid goon even make it to sergeant? Both of them are terrific, though. I love seeing both of them portray the same character in the different series. But if you want to see Lyle Littell, you should watch Dick Tracy's Dilemma. He's great in that. Now I lost track of a minute. I was still trying to talk about Faraday. The other reason Faraday has, aside from having such a klutzy sidekick, would be Blackie himself. Blackie is usually so self-incriminating that it's no wonder Faraday is always so suspicious of him. Faraday always walks in on Blackie and the Run at the worst times. Like when they're hiding a corpse or posing as cleaning women. The inspector just has a hard time finding any real clues because when Blackie is on the case, he's all over the place. And his methods are bend the law like a pretzel. One of the things I noticed with this type of series, this kind of detective, is they tend to make him too perfect. Someone who's never wrong, never makes mistakes, and all the side characters have very little to do with catching the bad guys. But I've never seen this work outside of Dick Tracy. It's refreshing to see Boston Blackie because there's so much to each individual character. Faraday, for instance, although he has a rough time finding clues, he usually assists Blackie at catching the real culprits, and often he apprehends them himself. The Runt never does well in the actual fight, but he always assists in other ways. On rare occasions, Matthews makes himself useful too, although usually by accident. There are two other favorite characters I've had yet to even mention as well. Arthur Manletter, a wealthy playboy and sometimes businessman, is a chubby little guy, almost always played by Lloyd Corrigan. He's a funny and endearing character who often gets into trouble and Blackie has to get him out. Lots of times, his mansion is a refuge for Blackie from the law. Then we have this shady pawnbroker, Jumbo Madigan, who supplies Blackie with information and disguises. Cy Kendall will always be remembered for that role. Although I will say Joseph Crahan does a fair job. His performance is excellent. It's that he doesn't really have the face for it. Cy Kendall's Jumbo wields a massive, daunting presence whenever he is on film. The role was made for him, and Joseph Crahan, while his acting is great, his size alone makes it difficult to see him as Jumbo. He's like Jumbo Shrimp. I don't mind him. There's only so much you can do with a role that's made for someone else. And that's how I like to look at the other people who fill in for Manletter whenever they can't get Lloyd Corrigan. The series, although on a low budget, was fantastic and it's still extremely popular. It's still popular today. In my upcoming video, I will be reviewing these films in order. And in the meantime, I'd also like to mention the Boston Blackies of radio and television. The radio show first aired while movies were still in the making. Chester Morse and Richard Lane reprised their roles from the screen onto radio as a temporary show to replace Amos and Andy, which had just been canceled. It became a popular hit, though, and Morse and Lane were replaced only because they couldn't work the movies and the radio show at the same time. Richard Kilmore replaced Morse as Boston Blackie on the radio. He was a skilled radio actor, but I feel that a lot of Blackie's personality, and Faraday's as well, was taken out of the show when the original actors left. The radio show is closer to the TV show, however, in that Mary Wesley, Blackie's gal Friday, became a regular character. The television series was great. I actually remember seeing the show long before we ever watched the movies. Kent Dale replaced his own version of Boston Blackie. Now completely a detective rather than a safeguarder, he's the hard-boiled but debonair hero with the mustache. He has a little dog named Whitey who takes on the role of sidekick next to his girlfriend. The Inspector Faraday in this is a bit older man with glasses, portrayed by Frank Orth, a funny little guy I always remember as Captain Tweedy in the Nancy Drew movies. The series is also set in Los Angeles, when the original stories had been set in... Hope you enjoyed the video and thanks for watching. Check out our channel for more videos like this, and you can also subscribe to watch our upcoming videos.